Welcome to this deep dive. We're pulling apart the threads of the week's news, trying to get to what really matters.
Yeah.
This week, well, our Easter reflections took a bit of a surprising turn. Maurice DeHond? They certainly did. We ended up talking about telepathy, some pretty extraordinary claims about bending time and space.
That was wild.
Right. Then the complexities around that missile attack in Ukraine, Meloni's visit to the White House, and of course the AI revolution that feels like it's right on top of us, Maurice DeHaan. It's quite a mix, isn't it? And somehow they all seem to touch on these fundamental questions about how we understand the world.
Definitely. Maybe since we just passed Easter, we could start there. Beyond the personal traditions, what are the kind of core ideas in Easter that resonate with you?
Well, Easter for me, it's deeply rooted in my Christian upbringing. The Bible readings, those hymns, who full London, head full of wounds, that one really sticks with me.
Mm.
And the Matthias Passion, which I'll be going to, it just has layers of meaning.
The historical event is key, of course, but the symbolic side, the psychological depth, that's become more and more significant for me over time.
How so?
Just that core story of death and rebirth, that cycle. It echoes things I looked into for my philosophy thesis on Hegel's phenomenology of spirit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the whole interplay of life and death, how it's essential to understanding spirit. It's just this powerful reminder of renewal, of transformation. Maurice DeHond. It's fascinating, isn't it, how often the big Jewish and Christian holidays line up. Passover and Easter, Hanukkah and Christmas, Shavuot and Pentecost.
I hadn't thought about all of them like that. Maurice DeHond.
Yeah, it feels like there's this deep shared connection to the seasons maybe, and these basic themes like overcoming hardship, finding new beginnings.
Absolutely. Maurice DeHond. And Easter, well, it's historically tied right into Passover. And they both come with spring, with all that new life pushing through. You can't help but appreciate April when everything starts blooming. Oh, definitely. That burst of color is always welcome after winter. So when you think about Easter, what comes up for you? Maurice DeHaan. For me, especially when my parents are gone, Easter, it naturally brings thoughts about mortality.
Mhm.
Maurice DeHaan, it makes you think more deeply about how you're living, about personal responsibility, that idea of zond, sin, but maybe in a broader sense of falling short.
Mhm. Maurice DeHond. Modern life, it doesn't always leave space for that, does it? For the deep solemnity of Good Friday and then the joy of Easter Sunday. That contrast.
That's true. Maurice DeHaan. I still have this really vivid memory from childhood, seeing Jesus on the cross in church. That image, it left a real impression. Those early memories can be potent. Now, you mentioned experiencing something pretty unusual recently. Maurice DeHaan. Yes, completely changing gears here. I went through this patch where I felt weirdly good at guessing numbers, almost like, well, telepathy. Really. Maurice DeHaan. It's happened now and then before, but this was quite strong. During our Seder dinner, we got talking about it, so I tried to guess a number under 10 that everyone was thinking of. 10 people there. Okay. Maurice DeHaan. 5 of them had the number I was focusing on. When other people tried guessing, their success rate was, like, way lower.
5 out of 10. Wow. Maurice DeHond. Then, just last week, I gave an AI lecture, had dinner afterwards with an acquaintance, a psychiatrist. The topic came up again.
Huh. Naturally. Maurice DeHaan. He said, let's try. So he thought of a number under 10. I guessed it. Right away. No way. Maurice DeHaan. Which was surprising enough. But then after the lecture, he said, let's try one more time. And I got it right again.
Twice in a row. Maurice DeHond. Yes.
Yeah.
The statistical chance of that happening randomly is, what, 1 in 100?
Okay, that's getting beyond coincidence, surely.
Right.
Maurice DeHaan. It made me think about those telepathy tapes in America. It's a podcast, maybe a documentary coming. Maurice DeHaan. This woman, I think her name might pop up on screen. She's done tons of research, including on kids who seem to have telepathic ability.
Children.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maurice DeHaan. Some of the cases documented are just, well, remarkable. It made me really question my own skepticism about it all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe telepathy is more real than we usually think.
Maurice DeHaan. And this connects somehow to that whole realm of, time travel and UFOs, or UAPs as they call them now, where they supposedly use highly sensitive people to, sense these things. This is fascinating. I've always had a bit of an interest in this less conventional stuff. And it links to that really extraordinary claim I saw this week. Maurice DeHaan.
Yeah.
Exactly. The director of the White House Office of Science and Technology, in an official statement, basically suggested they can bend time and space.
Seriously. Official statement. Maurice DeHaan.
Yeah.
Potentially allowing faster than light travel. It sounds straight out of Star Trek, the warp drive.
Wow. Maurice DeHaan. People following Aston Forbes on X, they've been all over this, linking it to teleportation theories. It's a huge leap to even consider. It reminds me, way back in '95, I wrote this book, early internet days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was exploring the idea of digitalizing our senses. Not physical teleportation, like Scotty beaming people up, Maurice DeHaan,
Right.
but more like sensory transfer, experiencing being somewhere else without actually physically going there.
That's a really interesting parallel. That makes me think of Marshall McLuhan, his whole concept of technology as extensions of man.
Ah, yes, understanding media.
Exactly. He argued these new techs, they reshape our senses, our whole experience of the world,
Yeah.
leading to more connection. His global village idea, Maurice DeHaan, we live in it now. We absolutely do. The world feels so much smaller, tighter through electronic media. Like you said, we wear all mankind as our skin. Events far away hit us hard, and it's only amplified now in the digital age. For anyone interested, that YouTube channel Redacted, they dig into similar stuff. It also makes you wonder, like with Nikola Tesla's work maybe, are we inventing things? Or just discovering principles that were already there? Maurice DeHaan, like discovering America. Precisely. It was already there, just not known to everyone. Maybe technology is sometimes like that. Maurice DeHaan. Speaking of uncanny things, I had this experience in the '80s. Really weird. I used to sometimes try guessing birth dates.
You seem to have a knack for guessing things. Maurice DeHaan. Huh. Well, this one time I wasn't feeling guessing a number, but I said I'd try for someone's birth month and day, not the year.
Okay, Maurice DeHaan. Went around the group, then suddenly I just said October. Then trying for the day, I said, sorry, I can't quite get it. I just keep getting one date in my head, and it's my own birthday, October 8th.
Maurice DeHaan, the person I was trying for, just yelled, "That's my birthday too!"
No, seriously. Maurice DeHaan. Seriously. First and only time I ever got someone's exact birthday like that.
That's another one that's hard to just brush off as chance. But the speculation around this unusual stuff doesn't stop there, right? Maurice DeHaan. Not at all. There are these, persistent stories, though totally unverified, about the Germans maybe tinkering with time manipulation like 80 years ago.
Fringe theories, but persistent.
Mm-hmm.
Maurice DeHaan. And then there's the whole mystery of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370.
Yeah.
Aston Forbes, he's been deep into this on social media for ages.
I remember seeing some of that, Maurice DeHaan, focusing on these official images, supposedly undebunked, that seemed to show 3 weird lights around the plane just before it vanished.
Lights. Maurice DeHaan.
Yeah.
Suggesting it maybe flew into some kind of anomaly, a wormhole, some theories say, which then leads to the question, are these things natural or maybe controlled?
Right, Maurice DeHaan. And that brings us right back to Trump's recent comment, saying he has this powerful technology nobody has.
Oh, yes, that raised eyebrows. Maurice DeHaan. Naturally, you start wondering, who else might have something like this? China.
Yeah.
Russia. He even added something cryptic, like you haven't seen anything yet about controlling space and time.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. So many strange threads connecting.
It definitely pushes the limits of our everyday reality. But, it leads us quite naturally to Carl Jung's idea of synchronicity.
Meaningful coincidences?
Exactly. Meaningful coincidences, but with no obvious causal link. I've had some pretty profound experiences with this myself.
Like what?
Well, the most striking one. The very morning I decided out of the blue to dismantle my father's old stereo system, thing I'd used for 40 years. I was actually cutting the wires, Maurice DeHaan's.
Okay.
And at that exact moment, or just after, I got the phone call. Unexpected news that my mother had suddenly passed away.
Oh my goodness. How incredibly sad, and what timing.
To this day, I cannot explain why I chose that morning to take it apart. I even remember pausing, thinking, should I just coil the wires or cut them? I cut them. Then the phone rang. I didn't even know she was ill. It was completely sudden. Maurice DeHaan? And that's
Yes.
deeply unsettling. The timing just felt significant, deeply significant. But synchronicity can be more everyday too, right? Thinking of someone and then they call.
It happens all the time.
Or a song that means something special just plays at the right moment. Some people even speculate about, multiple time dimensions, maybe offering an explanation, like a subconscious awareness beyond our usual linear time. Maurice DeHaan. Possible, I suppose. I've had other times too, symbolic things. A bird hitting a window coinciding with a big personal moment. It feels like, I don't know, news from the other side, maybe.
Wow.
These kinds of things, they fit somehow with the Easter theme, don't they? That element of mystery, the idea that there might be more going on than we easily see.
Absolutely, it all weaves together. But let's shift now to something more concrete, though very troubling. That missile attack in Sumy, Ukraine. Maurice DeHaan. Yes, that was one of the first things that jumped out at me this week. The initial reports, they paint out a really devastating picture. Mm-hmm. Maurice Dahont. A Russian missile attack, Sumy, loads of civilian casualties, 35 dead, 120 injured, I think.
Yeah.
And it was immediately framed as just, a brutal, deliberate attack on civilians.
Exactly, the initial narrative.
Mm.
But almost right away, a military expert I follow on X, he noted that a ballistic missile was reportedly used.
And that's significant because...
Well, those are typically used for high-value military targets, not just randomly hitting civilians to cause mass casualties. Maurice Dahont.
Right.
And then pretty quickly, other reports started trickling out. Less prominent, maybe mentioned briefly even in some Dutch media. Maurice Dahont, about a gathering of top Ukrainian military officials happening right there in the Sumy region.
Maurice Dahont. This apparently caused a big uproar with local authorities in Sumy. They felt it was incredibly reckless holding a meeting like that so close to the front line. Led to the governor getting fired, apparently.
So that raises a very different possibility, doesn't it? That the intended target was that military gathering. And the tragic civilian deaths were maybe the result of the missile being off target. Collateral damage, which is a completely different story than the first one.
You're right. I did see some Dutch news mention the military meeting, but the dominant story, the one that really stuck, was just civilian deaths, Russian brutality. People like Jan Bokenstein, Ruben Breckelmans, they pointed out this difference too.
It just shows how powerful framing is in the media, doesn't it? We saw it with COVID too. Sometimes the facts seemed less important than the conclusion people wanted to reach. Maurice Dahont. It's frustrating sometimes. You feel journalism isn't always doing its job of just, giving the information impartially. This whole thing actually reminded me of, it felt like a grim synchronicity. That Dutch F-16 attack in Hajiwa or Havia in Afghanistan, 10 years back.
Vaguely.
They bombed, this was a bomb factory, but it caused a lot of civilian deaths. And then there were all these allegations of a cover-up, video evidence disappearing. The Commission Sorgdrager report went into it. Maurice Dahont, right? I remember that now. What struck me then was how many people apparently behind the scenes knew about the civilian deaths, but helped hide it. And seemingly no real consequences. It just highlights these similar issues of transparency, accountability when things go wrong in conflict. If we step back, civilian casualties, sadly, they're part of war, collateral damage. It happens on all sides. Americans, Dutch forces, everyone throughout history.
True.
There's this modern push for a sort of clean war narrative, right? Where no civilians get hurt. But that often ignores the muddy reality, where mistakes happen, risks are taken. Maurice Dahont. And that pressure to look clean.
Yeah.
Exactly. It can lead to cover-ups. With Sumy, my first thought was, this might not be just a deliberate hit on civilians. Russia could cause mass civilian casualties much more easily if they wanted to. They know the global reaction. There's a kind of, schizophrenia sometimes. Supporting the fighting, but then being horrified by civilian deaths without really grappling with the risks involved. Then reports started coming out from Russian sources, but also from inside Ukraine, like that parliament member, Mariana Bezuglaya.
Okay.
She talked about a Ukrainian military ceremony happening right there, honoring officers involved in those raids into Russia, Maurice Dahont. So high-ranking people were there.
Exactly.
High-ranking Ukrainian military, maybe even NATO personnel. That makes it a legitimate military target from Russia's viewpoint. Reports said 2 missiles hit the spot, caused casualties among senior officers, colonels.
Which completely changes the picture.
It really does. It makes the immediate Russian war crime label look, well, questionable. You have to consider the military target aspect and the fact that maybe the Ukrainian military put civilians at risk by holding it there. That's the human shield principle. Yeah. Bezuglaya was very critical of her own military leadership over this. So it just backs up your point about the selective reporting, the lack of digging deeper by mainstream media, perhaps because of existing biases about Russia, Maurice Dahont. Yeah, my basic approach is just try to find different sources, credible ones if possible. You have to these days. Citizen journalists, independent analysts, they're crucial. Absolutely. It's amazing how quickly you can find information now that contradicts the main story. Finding stuff from that Ukrainian MP took like 10 minutes, and then you see NOS, the Dutch broadcaster, covering it late and kind of downplaying it, telling Maurice Dahont, and Zelensky firing the Sumy governor afterwards. That does suggest some level of Ukrainian acknowledgement that things weren't handled right, doesn't it? It certainly looks that way.
And Bezuglaya even hinted, subtly, that the whole Ukrainian event might have been a deliberate provocation.
A provocation? To what end?
Maybe to draw a Russian response. Who knows? It ties back to what we've discussed before, potential provocations to sabotage any future ceasefire talks. Maurice Dahont. We've also seen that supposed ceasefire on energy infrastructure breakdown, right? More violations apparently from Ukraine's side. Maybe Russia held back a bit, thinking Trump might come back, but I suspect we might see more Russian bombing soon.
You think Trump's focus is shifting?
I increasingly suspect so. Look at Rubio's press conference in Paris recently with European leaders, NATO. He basically said, a final framework for Ukraine is on the table. If Kyiv doesn't accept it in days or weeks, U.S. support might seriously drop off. Maurice DeHond. And Europe won't fill that gap alone. Highly unlikely they can offer the same level of security guarantees. So without the U.S., maybe without Europe too, Russia probably just keeps fighting until Ukraine has to surrender. Those reports about mineral contracts, I doubt they change much short term. Russia knows resources. Inside the U.S., you seem to have these two camps on Ukraine, right? The neocons and people like Trump's associate Wittkov, who's apparently met Putin.
Right.
Trump's public comments about Zelensky are getting sharper, more critical. It feels like he's leaning towards Witkov's view, wanting out. Rubio seeming to shift that way too. It's significant.
So things could move very quickly.
Very quickly. Could be a critical point in weeks, even days, depending on how Ukraine responds to whatever framework is proposed.
Wow. That's a heavy situation. Okay, let's shift gears again. Meloni visiting the White House. That "Make the West Great Again" line got attention. She certainly seems charismatic.
She does. And that visit, politically, very shrewd. She's clearly building her own direct connections, like Rutte did. Maybe not relying just on the EU leadership structure. Maurice DeHond, smart. Inviting Trump to Italy, that's a nice touch. Gentle, but maybe aims to draw Europe in collectively. And her approach, finding common ground migration, synthetic drugs, that's just normal diplomacy, isn't it? Something that felt missing for a while between Europe and the U.S.
True.
It's almost funny, but some say Trump seems to get along better with female leaders than some male ones.
Maybe.
It reminds me of Bill Maher, after years of slamming Trump, he had dinner with him at the White House.
I heard about that.
Maher apparently came away totally surprised. He said Trump was personable, and he felt reassured it wasn't like a crazy person in charge, which is quite a turnaround. Maurice DeHond, interesting anecdote. Of course, the criticisms about his policies, tariffs, wars, that all remains, which brings us to the economic anxieties, right? What happens if Trump comes back? Tariffs again. The impact on shipping, China's reaction. Maurice DeHond. Oh, the European business world is definitely nervous about that. Another round of supply chain chaos. After COVID, nobody wants that. Yeah, the risk with Trump is always those sudden, maybe not fully thought through actions, even if his trade views have been pretty consistent over time. But China will retaliate, that's almost certain, Maurice DeHond. From a business perspective, tariffs hit immediately. Dollar rate swings cause margin calls. Supply chains are so complex now, like that Victoria's Secret example showed. A lot of businesses genuinely worry if they can survive another major disruption like that. And then there's the U.S. Treasury bond situation, which is already looking a bit shaky. Does the Fed have to step in? China holds a lot of that debt. They probably wouldn't want to buy more if there's a trade war heating up.
Right.
It's also interesting that trend of Chinese TikTokers showing where luxury goods like Burberry bags are really made for pennies on the dollar. Is that a kind of subtle economic pushback already, Maurice DeHond? Could be. Our whole economy feels like a derivative economy sometimes, Value seems disconnected from actual production cost. Like you can buy a Bosch electric lawnmower for 95 euros, but a coffee and cake costs 16 euros. The value relationship feels skewed.
That's a good point. Which leads us straight into the AI tsunami conversation.
That was a good one.
Yeah. That former Google exec saying AI could match all human intelligence in 5 years. Super artificial intelligence. Some even say 3 years. Maurice DeHond. It's incredibly fast. I saw this thread outlining the phases. Early development, cost to drop, industries get disrupted, then full automation, maybe an economic boom leading to post-scarcity, a new golden age, but also huge risks. Maurice DeHond, I just gave that lecture. The AI tsunami is coming, drown or surf. I did a demo for Denew World, created a product idea, marketing plan, website text in about 10 minutes using AI tools.
Wow. Maurice DeHond. The speed of change with AI is just way faster than the internet's impact. What happens in the next 3 years could be like the last 25 years of the internet. Compressed. Massive disruption. New winners and losers. Globally.
It makes you rethink everything, like my clothing business. Maybe robots like Optimus could bring production back here, less reliance on China. But what does that do to jobs there and even here eventually? Maurice DeHond.
Exactly. That speed is inherently disruptive. It's hard not to see major economic and social unrest coming from this.
But there are maybe breaks on it too. The energy needed for all this AI and automation is huge. And the rare earth metals required for the tech. They're scarce.
Good points.
That could slow things down. And historically, big tech shifts often lead to politics, military, and industry getting closer together again, like Britain back then, or China and the U.S. now. Maurice DeHaan, resource competition.
Right.
Trump's focus on resources, Ukraine, Greenland, fits that picture. Europe, meanwhile, seems kind of clueless about this fundamental resource dimension sometimes.
Philosophically, you look back at the Industrial Revolution. Some countries tried to skip it. Didn't end well. We shipped manufacturing, like washing machines, to China and focused on services. The derivative economy again. Maurice DeHaan. And now maybe we become too passive. Relying on tech for everything, laundry gets done, leads to that matrix idea. People just docile, controlled. It sounds extreme, but... And don't underestimate the pressure robotization puts on Earth's resources. Could easily lead to more conflict over them. Maurice DeHaan. I absolutely agree that disruption goes way beyond just war. It's going to hit everyday life hard.
So looking ahead, what's your final take on this AI wave, your gut feeling?
Honestly, my outlook is pretty somber. I see a period of major upheaval, society, economy, driven by AI, plus geopolitical instability, plus, frankly, ineffective governance in the West.
Not optimistic, then.
That 2020 article I wrote, Welcome to the Roaring Twenties 2.0, feels more relevant every day. Remember, our low inflation for years was partly thanks to cheap Chinese goods. That's changing. Maurice DeHaan. Big shift. Maybe the U.S. reindustrializes using robots. That fits Trump's goals. But AI is a tsunami, hitting all sectors. Creative jobs, service jobs, nothing seems immune.
So what kind of economy emerges?
Potentially one dominated by capital, not labor. The owners of the robots, the AI companies. Techno-feudalism, some call it. Challenges everything about wealth distribution, the meaning of work. Maurice DeHaan. Wealth gap could explode. Owners of self-driving taxis, robot factories. Exactly. How do you even tax robots? And my worry, like yours, is governments are just not ready for this speed. That breeds unrest.
And work is more than just money, isn't it?
Absolutely. The social side, community, adapting to others.
Yeah.
What happens if mass unemployment hits? But okay, maybe there's a flip side, a distant hope. Maybe AI agents handle all the boring computer stuff, freeing us up to focus on being human. Creativity, relationships. Black Mirror Season 7 will probably show us the dark version. Maurice DeHaan. Probably. AI agents booking our travel, managing appointments. It's coming.
A lot to think about. Okay, briefly, let's touch on the Netherlands. Education, government effectiveness, or lack thereof. The Education Inspectorate now has to visit all schools again. Yes, to check quality. Something I've pushed for in my education association for ages. Basic skills, reading, math, they're declining. Currently, the inspectorate only goes to really problematic schools.
And Parliament wants them to go everywhere, unannounced.
Exactly. But the inspectorate is resisting. It shows this massive disconnect, right? Parliament decides, the minister agrees, but the agency doing the work just doesn't want to.
A symptom of a bigger problem.
I think so. A crisis of authority.
Okay.
Decisions get made, but nothing happens. People lose trust. The country feels ungovernable sometimes. Which brings us to the spring budget deal. Maurice, any new polling on that yet? Maurice DeHaan. No, the latest numbers are delayed. But previous polls were clear. Party support stable, but trust in ministers. The cabinet dropping.
Not surprising. Maurice DeHaan.
Yeah.
And understanding the budget details, the way it's framed in the news, it's hard. Like freezing rents sounds good.
Yeah.
Maybe. But it might also stop developers building new houses. Unintended consequences everywhere. It feels like the Netherlands is just completely stuck, tangled in this spider web of rules. Every fix creates new problems.
Yeah.
It feels like a system reaching its endpoint, trying to maintain itself, but undermining itself in the process. A transitional time. Painful. I wouldn't expect big changes from politics soon. Or gridlock. Maurice DeHaan. And that has real effects. Absolutely. Real consequences for listeners, for everyone. Young people can't find housing, can't start families. The cultural, social impact of that is huge, even if it's less visible than the politics. Maurice DeHaan. And these issues are surfacing now, aren't they? Support for populist parties rising, even among young, educated people. Reports questioning democracy, rule of law. Critical words from the Council of State, even. It's a complex, worrying picture, definitely, on lots of fronts. But, keeping with the Easter theme, even when things look bleak, there's always that possibility of renewal, of hope.
True.
The topics today can be heavy, unsettling, but it's important to also focus on the personal, right? Our own well-being, family, friends, that matters hugely.
Absolutely. And if you value these discussions, please do consider supporting the show. Patreon, subscribing to the channel, it all helps. Maurice DeHaan. And we have some exciting news. We're planning a live event, a sort of festival maybe, Friday, July 4th, near Utrecht at New U.
Nice. Maurice Dahon. I'm coming back from holiday especially for it, so save the date. It should be really special. We'll share more details soon. And just a quick update on the studio downstairs. Thanks to incredible community support, donations, volunteers, it's nearly finished.
Amazing progress.
We're so grateful to everyone who helped. And hey, if anyone's interested in volunteering as a host or hostess for our Friday sessions, just send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please do. Okay, a massive thank you to both of you for sharing your insights today. Really fascinating conversation. Maurice Dahont, pleasure.
Always good to talk.
And to everyone listening, we wish you a very happy Easter.